Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Backlash to House testimony shines spotlight on new generation of Ivy League presidents. Judge upholds Texas TikTok ban on government devices. Thinking like a state. Superintelligent AI, conscious machines. The unapologetic anti of indigenous data. Backlash to House testimony shines spotlight on new generation of Ivy League presidents. Associated Press. The recent congressional hearing on anti-Semitism saw 3 Ivy League university presidents invited to testify. Each of these leaders was a woman, representing a changing face of leadership in top-tier American universities. However, Jennifer McGill, the president of Penn, has since resigned in response to backlash over comments that were seen as insufficiently condemning hate against Jewish students. Facing similar calls is Harvard's president, who is also a woman, amid accusations that she failed to condemn anti-Semitism in her testimony. The hearing saw the presidents questioned as the public faces of universities embroiled in protest and complaints of anti-Semitism. Judge upholds Texas TikTok ban on government devices. New York Times. A federal judge in Texas has upheld a ban preventing state employees from using TikTok on government devices and networks, ruling that the ban is a reasonable restriction in light of concerns about data privacy. The ban was challenged by the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, which argued that it violated the First Amendment. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of the Coalition for Independent Technology Research, whose members include Texas college professors who claimed that their work had been undermined after being blocked from accessing TikTok on campus Wi-Fi and university-issued computers. Universities in more than 20 states have banned TikTok due to concerns about national security and data privacy. The Knight First Amendment Institute is calling for exemptions for university faculty from these bans. Thinking like a state. Foreign Affairs. In a recent article in Foreign Affairs, John J. Mearsheimer and Sebastian Rosado respond to Karen Yarimilo's review of their book, How States Think, which assesses the prevalence of rationality in international politics. Mearsheimer and Rosado argue that rationality has both an individual and a collective dimension, and that rational leaders employ credible theories about the international system and use them to navigate their situation. They emphasize that there are several credible realist and liberal theories, and leaders acting on the basis of any of them are rational. They also contend that, in their careful examination of 10 cases of foreign policy decision-making, all the states they examined were rational in the sense that their policymakers were guided by credible theories and made choices through a deliberative process. Yarimilo, on the other hand, challenges Mearsheimer and Rosado's definition of rationality and argues that deliberation does not necessarily eliminate biases and may even reinforce them. She points to studies in political psychology that show the presence of biases in decision-making and argues that the mere presence of deliberation does not necessarily lead to greater rationality. Yarimilo also criticizes Mearsheimer and Rosado's interpretation of certain cases, such as Neville Chamberlain's decision to appease Nazi Germany and the George W. Bush administration's decision to invade Iraq, arguing that their claims about the rationality of these decisions are flawed. Mearsheimer and Rosado respond to Yarimilo's criticisms by asserting that their analysis of the 10 cases in their book reveals no evidence of leaders employing mental shortcuts, being overwhelmed by emotions, or failing to engage in robust debate. They argue that Yarimilo's claims about the prevalence of irrationality are not supported by empirical evidence and that the field of political psychology has not directly addressed the question of whether states are rational in formulating grand strategy and navigating crises. They also disagree with Yarimilo's prediction that the United States and China will be irrational in their dealings with each other, arguing that both sides will behave rationally, although rationality does not guarantee peace in great power politics. Superintelligent AI, conscious machines. Financial Times. The final episode of the Financial Times series on artificial general intelligence explores the question of conscious AI. The episode features interviews with Eugenia Kaida, founder and CEO of Replica, Anil Seth, professor of cognitive and computational neuroscience at the University of Sussex, and Henry Shevlin, director of the Leverhulme Center for the Future of Intelligence at the University of Cambridge. The discussion centers around whether consciousness can emerge naturally in powerful AI systems and the moral implications of developing conscious AI. The episode also touches on the growing attachment some users have to romantic chatbots. The unapologetic anti of indigenous data. New York Times. Abigail Echo Hawk, an indigenous data activist, uses data to foster racial equity, dismantle stereotypes and secure funding. Echo Hawk directs the Urban Indian Health Institute and is the executive vice president of its overseeing body, the Seattle Indian Health Board. She has been recognized for her work on issues such as sexual violence, missing and murdered Indigenous women, and the COVID-19 pandemic. The lack of data on Indigenous communities is a way of erasing them from dominant society, said Melissa Walls of the Johns Hopkins Center for Indigenous Health. EchoHawk's work has highlighted disparities and led to changes in policy and perception. She teaches researchers how to include Indigenous people in data and helps hospitals and law enforcement agencies change their data collection practices. EchoHawk has a strong public presence and communicates with lawmakers to make bill language more inclusive. She has also testified in front of Congress many times and answers emails from tribes interested in data gathering projects. While some say that EchoHawk has made a significant impact in the field, others have suggested that other Indigenous public health experts have made more measurable contributions but have received less attention. These are the best and worst cities for expats to live and work in 2023. Bloomberg. Vienna, Zurich, and Auckland have been ranked as the top cities for expatriates in a survey by consulting firm Mercer. Vienna retained its position at the top of the list, with Zurich in second place and Auckland in third. The survey took into account factors such as political stability, healthcare, and cultural dynamism. Other cities in the top 10 included Copenhagen, Geneva, and Vancouver. Singapore was the highest-ranked Asian city, while Hong Kong came in at 77th place. The cities at the bottom of the list included Khartoum, Baghdad, and Bangui. Asteroid pieces brought to Earth may offer clue to life's origin. Washington Post. NASA's OSIRIS-Rx spacecraft has returned samples from the asteroid Bennu that could provide insights into the origin of life. In a presentation at the American Geophysical Union fall meeting, Dante Loretta, the mission's principal investigator, said the samples contained intriguing molecules including carbon-based organics that could shine light on the molecular building blocks of the solar system and possibly offer insights into the origin of life. The analysis of the samples is still ongoing and the team has yet to release a formal scientific paper. Loretta said that almost 5% of the sample is carbon, making it the richest carbon-rich sample the team has seen in extraterrestrial material. The team is also searching for molecules and compounds important to life on Earth, such as amino acids, lipids, and sugars. The results will be discussed at a scientific meeting early next year. Study: Ukraine has lost 18% of its scientists due to war. Yahoo! A study conducted by École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, EPFL, has found that Ukraine has lost 18% of its scientists since the start of Russia's invasion. The study also revealed that 23.5% of scientists in Ukraine have lost access to critical input for their research, and 20.8% cannot physically access their institution. Additionally, research capacity and time devoted to research activity in Ukraine have decreased by 20%. The results were based on survey responses from around 2,500 Ukrainian scientists and were published in the Humanities and Social Sciences Communications Academic Journal. Journalists tackle a political what-if. What might a second Trump presidency look like? Associated Press. There has been a flurry of recent stories about the implications of a potential second presidency for Donald Trump and his team's planning for Inauguration Day and beyond. The New York Times reporting team of Charlie Savage, Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman has been mining that topic since the summer, and last week wrote in depth about the former president's authoritarian impulses and the possibility of fewer checks on his power. On Sunday, they examined whether Trump would leave NATO. A special issue of The Atlantic magazine released last week collected essays by 24 writers on how a Trump presidency would affect things like foreign policy, immigration, journalism and climate change. Editor Jeffrey Goldberg wrote that people should read every one, though perhaps not in one sitting, for reasons of mental hygiene. The volume of stories had reached the point where the Trump campaign at the end of last week sent a memo calling on allies and former aides to cool it, saying messages about a potential second term from anyone but the former president and his team were an unwelcome distraction. How the 2016 election could factor into the case accusing Trump of trying to overturn the 2020 race. Associated Press. Prosecutors in the case against former U.S. President Donald Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election have said they want to present evidence showing that he has a history of spreading misinformation about voter fraud and refusing to accept election results that don't go his way. They also said they want to show that Trump's false claims about the 2012 and 2016 elections demonstrate a pattern of blaming fraud for election results he doesn't like and his motive, intent, and plan to obstruct the certification of the 2020 election results. Trump's lawyers, meanwhile, said they want to present evidence that he was alarmed by Russia's interference in the 2016 election, motivated as president to focus on cybersecurity, and had a good faith basis 4 years later to worry that foreign actors had again meddled in the race. The trial is set for March 4, 2024, in Washington. Nightmare before Christmas as retailers grapple with soaring crime rates. Telegraph. Shoplifting in the UK has surged in 2023, costing the retail industry £1 billion, $1.4 billion, per year, according to the British Retail Consortium, BRC. Retail economics and security firm TrueVision suggest the cost could be even higher, at £7.9 billion in 2023. Shoplifting has become industrialized, with organized gangs often stealing to order. Retail bosses complain that a weak police response has emboldened thieves. Retailers have spent around £700 million on extra security measures to combat theft. The co-op said last month that its specialist security teams had detained serious offenders almost 3,000 times this year, but the police had not shown up in 76% of those cases. Retailers are increasingly protecting staff as well as stock. Retail chiefs are now calling on the government to make it an aggravated offense to assault or verbally abuse staff in the workplace. In addition, a new initiative called Project Pegasus will see the police working with retailers to combat shoplifting gangs. Mason scores 20, Texas State routs Jarvis Christian 107-58. Associated Press. Texas State dominated Jarvis Christian in a 107-58 victory, with Jordan Mason leading the Bobcats with 20 points. 7 players from Texas State scored in double figures, showcasing their depth and teamwork. Freshman reserve Michael Wynn was the top performer for Jarvis Christian with 19 points and 8 rebounds. Whistleblower alleges Champagne's office softened SDTC report in cover-up. The Globe and Mail. The federal government in Canada was aware of serious governance, conflict of interest, and human resources issues at Sustainable Development Technology Canada, SDTC, for several months but altered a report to keep senior leaders in place, according to a whistleblower. Isra Ahmad, a former employee of SDTC, testified before a House of Commons committee that the government was planning to replace the management and board of the agency in early September but changed its stance and released a softer report instead. The investigation into SDTC, which provides funding for green technology, was triggered by allegations from Ahmad and other employees. Could top college programs stop recruiting high school QBs in favor of the transfer portal? College Football Inquirer. Yahoo! There is a discussion on the College Football Inquirer podcast about the possibility of top college football programs no longer developing high school quarterbacks and instead buying already developed quarterbacks through the transfer portal. While some believe that recruiting high school quarterbacks is still important, others argue that top programs may be able to afford to buy quarterbacks who have already been developed. The strategy of buying quarterbacks through the transfer portal is seen as high risk, high reward, as there is no guarantee of success. Local election, District 6 candidate questionnaire excerpts. Yahoo! Democratic candidates Nicole Rogers and Jeff Hone, who are running for Albuquerque City Council District 6, have outlined their plans to combat homelessness and the housing crisis in the city. Rogers believes that increasing the number of shelter beds and providing wraparound services for the unhoused can help address the issue. Hone, on the other hand, suggests funding smaller, population-specific shelters and having a proactive force, such as the Albuquerque Community Safety Department, on the streets to actively engage with homeless individuals. Both candidates also discuss the need to allocate funding for eviction prevention programs and prioritize workforce development to improve the quality of life for residents in their district. That's all for today's news. We covered a range of topics, from the controversy surrounding Ivy League university presidents to the potential impact of a second Trump presidency. We also discussed the emergence of conscious AI, the efforts of indigenous data activist Abigail Echo Hawk, and the best and worst cities for expats to live and work in. Additionally, we touched on fascinating topics such as the return of asteroid samples and the impact of war on Ukraine's scientific community. Lastly, we explored issues like rising crime rates in UK retail and the strategies of college football programs in recruiting quarterbacks. Now, let's dive into some analysis. The backlash faced by the Ivy League university presidents after their testimony on anti-Semitism highlights the challenges faced by leaders in today's society. It also brings to the forefront the changing face of leadership in top-tier institutions, with women taking on prominent roles. The debate over conscious AI raises questions about the future of technology and ethics, as we consider the moral implications of developing machines with human-like consciousness. Abigail Echo Hawk's work as an indigenous data activist sheds light on the importance of data in promoting racial equity and challenging stereotypes. In terms of international relations, the debate between John J. Mearsheimer, Sebastian Rosado, and Karen Yarimilo in Foreign Affairs offers differing perspectives on the rationality of state decision-making. Meanwhile, the return of samples from the asteroid Bennu offers the potential for groundbreaking discoveries about the origin of life. In Ukraine, the impact of the ongoing war on the scientific community is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. On the political front, the case against Donald Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election raises questions about the role of misinformation and the motives behind such actions. Turning to the retail industry, the surge in shoplifting in the UK highlights the need for stronger measures to combat crime and protect staff. In the world of sports, the discussion around college football programs potentially favoring the transfer portal over recruiting high school quarterbacks reflects the ever-changing landscape of the game. Finally, in local politics, the Albuquerque City Council candidate's plans to address homelessness and the housing crisis demonstrate the diverse approaches being taken to tackle these pressing issues. And that's a wrap. Remember, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these news stories. What are your ideas and opinions? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.